Tonight on Western Sports Roundup, we will have the opportunity to catch up with one of rodeo's legends and icons. The famous Bob Tallman stops by inside the Cowboy Channel studio to talk about his great career at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo.
We'll also have the chance to catch up with that man right there, Dr. Thomas Byrd. Not only is he a world-renowned orthopedic surgeon, he's been the team physician for the Tennessee Titans as well as the U.S. Olympic team, and is keeping your favorite Cowboys on the road. And of course, a lot of moving parts at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. We will have a chance to talk about a high school shootout that took place just a few weeks ago. We'll tell you about the champions here today.
This Cowboy thinks so. Woo! Come on, Avanis. What can we be in Fort Worth? Shut up, Brian.
Everyone, welcome into the Cowboy Channel studios. My name is Elise Sutherland, alongside my good friend Corey Keith, and you're watching Western Sports Roundup, this Wednesday edition. And Corey, do we have a big show for these fans today?
Yes, we do. And of course, it leads us in to our Kubota top story. As you know, Bob Tallman just wrapped up 50 years at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. He will forever be the voice of Fort Worth, and his legacy will live on for years to come. And of course, Bob going to be taking on a new role, which we are going to tell you more about that today. But take a look at this. He is announced for 50 years. 1976 was the first time. That was back when it was in the Will Rogers. 17 times he was blessed to announce the National Finals Rodeo. And of course, he's been named Announcer of the Year 12 different times by his peers. He's announced more than 23,000 rodeo performances in his career. So everything listed there is nothing but spectacular.
There's certain iconic things that come out in remembrance, and you hear Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo and your mind immediately goes to an image. And people coming to the rodeo, Bob Tallman really is the first thing that comes to mind.
Before Bob Tallman, rodeo announcers were more like the public address announcers in football, where they just basically described the play, the contestant.
And then came along this long-haired outlaw from Winnemucca, Nevada that, I mean, just completely reimagined how we announce a rodeo.
Protocol and decorum went out the window when Bob took the microphone, and it was really refreshing. And he genuinely wants every cowboy to be a star. He genuinely wants every fan in the seat to feel like they leave there with more information than they got there with, maybe too much information.
It's hard to explain to somebody that has never been there before, but there's something about his voice that just gets you ready for war. He can probably make me run through one of these walls.
The way Bob can interject his personality while still being professional, that's something that very few guys have mastered, and he wrote the book on that.
He's Elvis. It's hard to put one word on the guy, but Elvis did what Bob's doing. Elvis played music, so did everybody else, but he did it different. He was a little bold. He's the greatest ever.
Bob Tallman lives hard, loves hard, and he is the most passionate human I've ever met in my life. He can be one of the most inspirational humans, one of the most encouraging humans. Bob Tallman is iconic.
Personable, to say the least. He's personable, an icon, and professional. But Bob Tallman is here on Western Sports Roundup. Thanks for being here, Bobby T.
Thanks, neighbor.
And a legend in the arena, and to all the friends around. And I know you've had the chance to see that video before, but does it still pull your heartstrings just a little bit to hear some of the people that you've known since the day they were born, basically, and friends you've worked with for 50 years, just to talk a little bit about how much they care about you?
Well, the first thing I see is I need to lose 50 pounds. I'm working on it.
And the second thing, and the most important thing is, I didn't live this long to get to do what I've done this long without a lot of help.
Yeah.
Guidance, support. My family has never said no. We moved 13 times in the first 40 years that Kristen and I were married.
Wow.
And my daughter, Nicole, never complained. Tried to run away from home when we moved from California to Oregon one time. But how do I go back? There was an older gentleman that I used to rope with when I was just a kid. His name was Vern Ryan, another guy named Hank Angus, that taught me to be a cowboy. My dad was a cowboy, but he was an old, rough, tough, bucking horse rider, wild horse racer. And we were raised in a buckaroo camp in Orvada, Nevada. And so when we moved to town and I saw television had running water and electricity, I thought there'll never be another poor day. 2 years later, I was back on the ranch. Couldn't stand that peace and tranquility.
Yeah.
When I started in the rodeo business, my first job in the rodeo business was selling programs in Winnemucca with the Kiwanis Club when I was about 12 years old for 25 cents and watching all my heroes out there. Y'all know Kyle Chapin, helps run the NFR. His dad and his uncle were two of my heroes. They're old bucking horse riders and goodness. Well, over the years, I was 14 the first time I met Cotton Rosser. I met Cy Talion. And to me, if there was a cowboy heaven, I didn't know which one was Jesus and which one was God because they just were bigger than life.
Yeah.
Okay? When you're surrounded by people who help you with the inertia you need to go on, and they coax you along, then I bought this microphone and set of speakers. $26 Windsor mic, four big university horns, some drivers, and a little 4-channel box. Wow. And my wife, Kristen, typed 300 letters to help me get a car to go.
Wow.
And I was still trying to want to ride bucking horses and rope when I first started, and they'd hold them until after. And then all of a sudden, I got a job. And then I got another job. And today, I get another job. Thank you. Thank you to all of those people out there for what they have done. And by the way, if I owe any of you any money, check the obituaries, I might be dead. For those of you I haven't borrowed money from yet, good bankers, get ready. I got some plans.
So, Bob, I want you to think back. Where was the first place you picked up a microphone?
Well, I've told this story different ways, Corey.
Yeah.
A time or two. It was in Fallon, Nevada. We were there. Garley Amos, the best man in my wedding 57 years ago, and I were entered in the calf roping team roping, and we were entered at Burns, Oregon on the same weekend. It was a Labor Day deal. And I backed in the box, and Gary and Flint Hempstead's daddy, Dick Hempstead, was putting the rodeo on. And there was a lady up there who I had known for a long time announcing the rodeo. And I said, Dick Hempstead, I said, my God, can't you find somebody to go help that poor woman? He said, go rope your steer, go rope your calf, whatever it was. Then tie your horse up and go up there and help her. So I did. So after the rodeo, he said, can you be here tomorrow? I said, no, I've got to be in Burns, Oregon tomorrow to rodeo. Supposed to be there 2 days. I'll be back in 3.
Yeah.
He said, when you come back, we'll try it. Went up there, horse bucked me off right on a kidney on a rock that size. And my partner says, we don't need to do this again tomorrow. We went back, and I went up there and helped that lady. He gave me $100.
Wow. That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mid-1960s, okay? I said, this is good. And I stayed the next day, gave me another $100. Then another guy picked me up, took me to a Fairs convention, Corky Prunty, Diamond Day Rodeos. What a great man. he got to telling everybody I was his new rodeo announcer the next year. I'm going, yeah, okay, fine.
Sure.
By golly, better get a sound system, and I did. My wife said, really? I said, yeah, we're going. Okay. My wife gave up a career in college. She was a jock, physical education, would have made a great PE teacher.
Yep.
And she gave up everything to hold a job so I could afford to go. But I had 2 other jobs.
Yeah.
I was a brakeman on the Western Pacific Railroad in Winnemucca to Salt Lake, and from back here to Oakland, California.
Yeah.
I worked for my dad in the lumberyard, and I drove a truck for the Southern Pacific Railroad delivering freight. Otherwise, I didn't have much time off.
So
Wow.
I'm gonna say this because you've told me this before. You never quit your day job.
Oh,
You
no.
kept announcing.
And what did I tell you the first time we met?
Said, don't quit your day job.
There's
Never
going to
did.
be some
That's good
slim
advice.
pickings.
That's right.
And I'm not talking about fried chicken either. You've got to diversify.
Absolutely.
And you got to stay and go. You got to prime your motor and then give it a little more gas. And when you think you're about to slow down, give that gas some more.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that just want to quit everything and go knee deep, which I understand
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
hungry for it. But
Yeah.
you always told me, you said, never quit your day job.
With all that the 2 of you at your young age have already accomplished, okay? And I'm an addict to the Cowboy Channel. I've known Patrick Gott since 1982. I've watched the transformations come and go. And I have to say thank you to all the owners that have been here. Thanks to what you're doing today, you have created, and I'd have to throw Taylor Sheridan in on this. The Cowboy Channel, Taylor Sheridan, and all of the offshoots now have thrown a new Western want-to-be lifestyle out there for people to be like.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
people love to emulate other people. I like to emulate Jesus. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if I can be right most of the time, I'm an ordained minister and I cuss a little too. And I can lead those into a sane mind position of thinking. They might follow the BS stories I'm telling over here and the actions I actually show over here.
Yeah.
So when you 2 get a whim, run with it.
Yeah.
You get a feather, flutter.
Yeah.
You get a chance to jump off the cliff, think about it before you do it if you don't know where you're going to land.
Yeah.
And I've jumped off a lot of cliffs and been so blessed to land running.
Wow. And a lot of blessings for sure. And in 50 years at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, you've had the chance to witness and call some of the biggest moments in history. But something that I would like to know is, are there any moments that didn't make it here on the Cowboy Channel or on the big screen or in the PSN, a kind deed or a conversation you might have had with someone in the stands or behind the buck and shoots that really stood out to you in the last 50 years that was just a special moment?
Elise, there are millions of them. My dear friend 8X, Donnie Gay and I were visiting about him yesterday. To have Donnie and Pete and Terry Gay give you a call, that's a big deal. But we've been friends through the thick and the thin of it. The things that were never probably photographed was the pain, the loss, and the hurt of not being able to finish. In the big sports world, all sports today, including race car driving, they exemplify the downside, where we don't, because you got another race, you got another run, you got another horse to ride, so forth and so on. So people, until the Cowboy Channel came along, really haven't been able to get on the inside to meet someone.
Yeah.
Years ago, one of my all-time mentors, Kurt Gowdy Sr., took me to Cheyenne to the Frontier Days for ABC Wide World of Sports. And I was his second man. He would do his thing for ABC, and then I'd step in and do some color and talk about the contestant. That is when I knew that that was going to fit. Then my friend Bob Eubanks from the dating game come along, who was a cowboy. His son's a cowboy. His twin granddaughters are cowboys with my grandkids now. To be surrounded by those kinds of people and let them lead you. And the best thing for all the television networks I've worked for all the rodeos, I want to make a comment about Fort Worth, at least in a moment, was to watch and to listen.
Yeah.
W.R. Watt brought me to Fort Worth. He came out to the Cow Palace and hired me. Brought me to Fort Worth and said, boy, you want to come do my rodeo? I said, yes, sir. He said, you know that's Fort Worth. I said, yes, sir. Didn't ask what it paid. Didn't care what it paid. It was 8 performances. Later in the Will Rogers Coliseum, it grew to 36 performances.
Wow.
3 a days on Saturdays. And I probably learned more at Fort Worth, Texas. When you go 3 days, 3 in a day, at the end of the day, you got 2 more coming the next day, you better recalculate and figure out what you're going to do. First for energy, secondly for knowledge.
Wow.
This rodeo, Fort Worth, Texas, taught me that. Then I was blessed to go to Houston in the Astrodome.
Yep.
Got to understand, you can have 2 favorite rodeos, and they are Fort Worth and Houston.
Yeah.
Then I can go to Reno and go where there's 10. Anthony and I'll go to Santa Maria. Wayne Brooks and I'll go to Red Bluff. Brooks and I will go to Reno, and then to get to go to Cheyenne for a couple of days, and on and on and on. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity.
Yeah, and the opportunities are still there. Bob, we hate to cut you off short today, but man, it's been an honor to have you in the studio with us on Western Sports Roundup, and thank you for everything you've done for not just me and Elise and everybody sitting at home. I know you've inspired a lot.
I'd love to tell you some Ty stories and Justin stories.
Well, now hold on, we do have time. We can come back after a break and continue this.
I wish we could do that. That's for sure. But
me too.
We'll just have to. You know what, Corey? I think we're just gonna have to bring the legend back.
I think so.
We'll have to bring it back. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Thank you all.
We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
The legend in the arena joins us right now. But next on Western Sports Roundup, from the legend talking about the boys on the road and cowgirls, we're going to talk to another man that helps keep them on the road. Dr. Thomas Byrd is going to join us to talk a little bit about the health and recovery it takes for a rodeo athlete. Stay with us. You're watching Western Sports Roundup.
Western Sports Roundup is brought to you by Resistol, the official hat of the PRCA and Cowboys everywhere.
Evolved from open procedures for things like ACL tears and shoulder dislocations to less invasive arthroscopic approaches. But for the hip, until we had the arthroscope to look in the hip and see the damage that was present, these problems went unrecognized and untreated in the past. So not only were we developing the techniques and the technology, but at the same time, we were still just grasping, sort of scratching the surface on understanding the etiology, the reason that these injuries occur. We were treating some of the injuries, and then we've finally gotten where we understand why these injuries occur. We can address the reasoning they occur with more successful outcomes.
It's fascinating that you talk about the how, and is that something that you and Dr. Tandy Freeman have really been able to come together on when it comes to these different events, from a tie-down roper all the way to the bareback riding? Are you seeing similar injuries to these cowboys' hips in their respective events?
Well, kind of the common theme, pretty much, and there's so much variability, and I don't want to talk like I know something, but kind of there seems to be so much variability in the demands on the hip between the different events and activities. But the common theme is the nature of the way the hips are formed, and the most common problem we deal with is this hip impingement. And I don't know if you've heard much about hip impingement.
No, I have not.
Well, I'll sort of carry on for just a moment and just stop me if I get too boring. But hip impingement, the initials we use are FAI, for femoroacetabular impingement, which is just a big word for a problem that develops in childhood at age 9 or 10, where the socket extends forward a little too much, so that when somebody flexes their hip, the rim of the socket starts to damage the cartilage, but also where the femoral head, the ball part, is a little bit out of round that creates uneven wear inside the joint. That's just the way some people's joints form, but that's the main underlying cause that leads to damage in athletes of all types. And I tell people this impingement thing is kind of like the front end of your car being a little out of alignment. It leads to some uneven tread wear. And then over time, as you flip off the tread, and start to develop symptoms, but it's building up for a long time. And I tell people, we don't see young people get into trouble with FAI unless they're involved in sports or physically demanding activities. If they're not pushing their bodies hard, the problem doesn't start to develop until much later in life. But this impingement is kind of the common theme for probably 90% of the hip problems we see in athletes and fit people who participate in physically demanding activities.
So in all the years of your research and doing these surgeries, what is one thing that might be a preventative for somebody that's sitting at home that maybe wanting to compete in the bareback riding or in a sport in general, like football?
Well, I think in general, as we talk about prevention, we have to be a little careful, because when we see people get into trouble with this impingement, for everyone that's getting into trouble, there's a whole lot of other people who may live long, active lives and never develop problems. So we need to be a little careful not trying to get too proactive with prevention for something that might not necessarily be a problem for everybody. But you can't really change the way the hip is formed, but with physical therapy and rehabilitation, there's a lot they can accomplish with stabilization of the pelvis to open up to reduce the forces across the hip joint. So it's not strictly a static problem. There's very much a dynamic component, and those are things that you can try to emphasize in the course of non-surgical treatment.
We've just learned and seen on the screen some of the athletes that you've had the opportunity to care for, from a torn labrum to a bone spur to a full hip reconstruction. When it comes to the recovery time and ability to get these Cowboys back in the arena, and I know being around sports, you see a lot of people that are ready to kind of push that bar, but what does the recovery look like for some of these athletes as they prepare to get back on the road?
Well, we sort of tell them that the first 3 months is sort of structured rehabilitation, and then the next 3 months is sort of functional progression, just depending on how they're doing, how they're getting their strength back. So 3 months structured rehab, 1 to 3 months functional recovery. So getting back to sports is about a 4 to 6 month process, and it's a little variable once you get past the 3 month point.
So, Doc, I'm going to ask this too. You have a lot of accomplishments in your career. I know working for the Tennessee Titans, the physician now, but even the Olympic team. What's some other organizations you've been a part of?
Oh, wow. I guess it just shows I had too much free time on my hands. I've been very blessed in my career. I credit Dr. Andrews and my father, who's a general surgeon, to sort of set me on the path and just figure out how to look after people well. And I think beyond that, just as opportunities have presented themselves, and my father always said 90% of life is showing up. So just being available to these folks is important. As Tandy Freeman will tell you, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. One of the biggest jokes with Dr. Andrews is the worst kept secret in the world is Dr. Andrews' cell phone number. Everybody knows how to get in touch with him, and I just try to follow what my mentors taught me.
I love that. You clearly have, but I've got one more question for you, Dr. Byrd. When it comes to these athletes, from Olympic athletes to football players to rodeo cowboys alike, are there any similarities that you've noticed between the mentality of an athlete and across these different sports and disciplines?
Well, it's interesting. I'll tell you, we've got one of our directors of rehab who she has 2 specialties, ballet and rodeo athletes, which makes you giggle, ballet and rodeo athletes, but actually there are many parallels in there. Certainly they're motivated, hardworking, and we'll try to go through anything, but I look after a lot of athletes who are motivated and hardworking. That's part of what makes them successful. But the other 2 things that are common to these groups are they're incredibly appreciative of the care that we provide. They don't feel entitled at all. And they're incredibly passionate because they're not necessarily just doing it for the financial reward. It's just an absolute passion. And for me to have the honor to be able to care for these people where literally you're just trying to cut them loose, and because my part's over in a couple of hours, it's all the work that they put in that leads to the successes, puts them back in the saddle or on the back of an animal.
Well, Dr. Byrd, I wish we could tell everyone about all the success stories that we know about, but I know law tells us otherwise. But seriously, keep doing what you're doing. I know your phone number is definitely well known in our Western way of life.
Well, I can't thank y'all enough for having me here. Again, it's just every time I think about looking after these folks, it just brings a smile to my face.
Well, we appreciate you, Dr. Thomas Byrd, and continue doing what you do. Thank you once again to Dr. Thomas Byrd for joining us on Western Sports Roundup. But don't go anywhere, because on the other side of this break, we're going to crown the high school rodeo champions. That was in Fort Worth, Texas, just a few days ago at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo Shootout. Stay with us. Well, just a couple days ago, just over at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, and had a lot of things going on, including a high school rodeo showdown where winners received a $3,000 scholarship and trophy buckles. A pretty cool opportunity for them to be able to showcase their talents in front of the masses during the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. So hats off to everybody that was behind the scenes making this happen. And of course, Elise, there's some great talent coming up right now in rodeo, and it's excited to see.
Absolutely, and being able to compete for so much money, thanks to our friends at Ag Trust Credit as Farm Credit as well. We had contestants from all over the state of Texas, even a mix from southern Oklahoma, eastern New Mexico, and western Louisiana that claimed the state of Texas for their high school rodeo organization. The Bareback Riding, we've talked about this young man before. Cash Lloyd is one of those athletes you need to keep your eye on. The 2024 National High School Bareback Riding champion from Cleburne, Texas, and he's been the Texas High School champion for the last 2 years. Again, he's 18 now. That's one of those boys we got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, former National High School champion 2024. Pretty impressive, really. Keep an eye on him, like Elise just said a moment ago. Now let's move to the tie-down roping. It was all about a Meridian, Texas cowboy by the name of Devin Eakin, stopping that clock in 9.3. He will earn a $3,000 scholarship and a pretty impressive run for him.
He won this by a whole 2 seconds. And the number 2 cowboy, not going to tell you that one and give it away yet, but the number 2 tie-down roper ended up with another win later on in the event. In the breakaway roping, let's talk about some fast cowgirls. Riley Edens is no stranger to success. You just look her up on social media. You can see all the saddles, all the money, all the scholarships she's been able to leave with, but a 2.17 second run. She was proud of that. Her mom was a breakaway roper, was plenty proud of that as well, and she's on to big, great things too.
Talented volleyball player and basketball track star as well. Saddle bronc riding, we look to Ethan Cart. He stole the girls' hearts. That rhymes, doesn't it? 74 points is what he pieced together during his time at the Will Rogers. This was an event inside the Will Rogers Coliseum on the grounds of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. But Ethan Cart, the champion of the saddle bronc riding. Now we move to steer wrestling.
And I told you guys to hang on for just a second. We got a tie-down roper right here in the steer wrestling. Collier Cowardry was number 2 in the tie-down roping. And he said, you know what, I think I need a chunk of the change too. 5.26 second run. We've got an all-around hand coming up through the pipeline, and I think we need to be ready for it.
I would agree with that statement. Now, team roping, this is crazy because team ropers, they come from all over the place, but this team right here, Rance Winters and Cade Sandstrom, stop the clock. That's a Lipan, Texas to the horn. Stephenville, Texas on the heels. Look at that heel shot. He almost had his arm over that horse's head. Somehow he comes up with it. 5-23, nice run for the boys.
There's so much talent coming through the ranks, and we're just seeing it all happen right here, Corey. How great is that? From Seguin, Texas, Brylan Becker, our Watson Boots brings us this event and all of the money. She was just ahead, though, of the Rockdale, Texas cowgirl, Skylar Nicholas, for 1/1500th of a second. That is just how close the barrel racing was.
Yeah, pretty fast run, smoking fast run, but there was a pair of bull riders that stepped up to the plate. First one, a former Texas high school champion from Terrell, Texas, Avantis Williams, straps it on, this one right here away from his hand, making it look way too easy. And of course, there is Colton Phillips, both of them 75 points on their efforts, and a job well done. They get the $3,000 scholarships as well. Let's not forget that.
Yes, they do. A lot of great contestants we had the chance to watch right here in our own backyard, Will Rogers Coliseum, and so much history in that arena. And these athletes are adding their names to the 2026 history books of Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. But speaking of history at Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, next on Western Sports Roundup, you're going to know this family. We get the chance to tell a pretty good story about one of our own, the heart of a champion, next on Western Sports Roundup. Welcome back into Western Sports Roundup. Last year, our very own Katy Lucas didn't quite make it to the finals of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo the way that she had planned, but 2025 ended up being one of the most important years in her life. And if you guys ever wondered what happened after the second performance of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, well, we've got the story. Here's more on our very own Katy Lucas.
Woohoo! Hadley's journey has been memorable and unique. He's thrown a lot at us since the beginning, a lot of hard things, but I'm so grateful for the way that everything turned out, even though it was not in my plan at all. You know, one wrong move and we could have lost him.
Did your lack of backing off show just how
Katy was in Reno and she called me, let me know that we finally got pregnant, so.
We're really excited to get a family started. So Hadley Berg went to a lot of rodeos with me, and it was actually at Pendleton when people started to realize that I might be pregnant, but he was everywhere. And then of course NFR, he was very largely a part of that. He, I think, liked it when the crowds would cheer because all of a sudden he would really start to kick. So I made it through the NFR pregnant, and the game plan was to make it through the somewhere around 20 perfs of the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, and then I would have 4 weeks left in my pregnancy. I made it through 2 performances. Started to get a fever, just really not feeling good. I've never missed a rodeo performance in my entire career, so it was really hard on me to have to tell them, hey, I cannot make it in today, but I was on the couch with a fever and could not shake it. Several days into being sick, my water broke. I was 36 weeks pregnant, so way earlier than we expected.
He was due March 1st. It was January 29th.
Hadley was also breech, so we were headed for a C-section. By the time we got to the hospital in Dallas, it was just after midnight. Things were happening really, really fast. When Hadley came out, he wasn't breathing.
I didn't hear him cry or anything, but I could hear them shuffling around and they were whispering to each other, and it didn't sound very good to me, so I was pretty scared.
The NICU team was there just to grab him instantly. They got a tube in. He started breathing after a couple minutes on his own. In the first few moments of life, a lot happened to him, and he finally cried. So Hadley was born at 1:30 a.m. on January 30th, and he was 5 pounds 6 ounces. They took Hadley off to the NICU and worked to get me kind of stabilized a little bit. The next morning, Jens finally got to go and see Hadley and check on him. To add another wrinkle, because I had the flu when I came into the hospital, they wouldn't let me see Hadley right away. They quarantined me, and it was about 3 days before I was allowed to go meet my little baby. All the cliches are true. You love that baby more than you would ever imagine, and you can't tell someone until they experience it for themselves. We thought it was going to be just put in our time and wait for him to grow a little bit, but something was wrong. Every time they would try to wean him off of oxygen, he would really go downhill fast. They took a really close look at his heart and they found a defect, a total anomalous pulmonary venous return, which essentially means the veins that are supposed to bring the blood from one side of his heart to the other were there, but they were not connected, so the blood couldn't go anywhere. He needed a TAPVR surgery.
He was 6 days old. You think about something that small going to have surgery, all the things that go through your head is, how are they going to do this? You know, they're going to do surgery on something that's the size of a walnut. But did a lot of praying and yeah, it was pretty scary.
About 6 or 7 hours later, he was out of surgery and we got to see him, and that was the hardest part for me. They're on some pretty heavy-duty medication, but Hadley always had really clear, really observant eyes. And coming out of surgery, he was so glassy-eyed, and I just remember being so scared. I stayed pretty tough and didn't really cry through the whole process, but I just remember looking down at his poor little glassy eyes and just hoping that he was still the same baby. Another complication he had is this one lung wouldn't inflate because he has a little problem with his sternum. They were doing all kinds of physio for that and trying to get it to inflate to help him. And the night that it did inflate, we knew instantly because he just started yelling all night long. And you know, it was like he was saying, "I'm good now, my lungs are good, my heart's good."
It was amazing how resilient children are. He's tough.
A couple weeks in, we were talking with the doctors every day, and I just remember when they started talking about steps to go home. And it dawned on me, finally, like, oh, I get to take my baby home at the end of this process. 30 days in the hospital, but Hadley got to wake up at home on his due date of March 1st. Hadley today is just like any other little boy. All of his checks have gone so well. He's a small fella, but we're not very big either. He's just a regular baby, and that's everything we could ever want. He hit the rodeo trail with us. He went to Nashville for their first rodeo. He went to the PBR World Finals. I think he's been on 24 flights, hit about 12 or 13 states, been to Canada twice, been to some of the biggest rodeos in the world.
I'm not going to force him to rodeo, but we do some gentle herding and hopefully he does some stuff.
I'm really grateful for everybody that came together to help Hadley be the little boy that he is today. He's so happy. He didn't have to be this happy after everything he's been through. On one hand, it feels like all of this happened yesterday, but on the other hand, it feels like it didn't even happen to us because he's perfect.
Well, you know, I have to say, Psalms 127, it says that children are a gift from the Lord, and I think that Hadley is a special gift to all of us here at the Cowboy Channel and everybody watching at home. And, of course, Hadley got to celebrate his first birthday party at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, so I know the entire family, the entire crew, it is a very special place for Jens and Katy, so congratulations, and we're going to continue to pray for Hadley and his upbringing, but stick around with us, don't go anywhere, because Jordan Jo Hollabaugh with In the Loop, get a little teaser coming up for you next. Well, in case you didn't know, there are some new things unfolding here at the Cowboy Channel, and one of those is keeping you in the loop, and that is with Jordan Jo Hollabaugh as she tells us all the best stories about breakaway roping. That's how it all started, but see how things are continuing.
Horses have been your foundation and your true love. That is one of the things as your friend that I admire about you is horses come first in all things. And that's what's built you and what's made you. And I think when you came on the scene and we saw Vanilla Wafer, that was the first time through rodeo, quote unquote, you were introduced to me. But you've been within horses and the horse world, barrel racing. You're probably most well known in the barrel racing industry, like the Futurity Barrel Racing Queen. $2.5 million in lifetime earnings is what your Equistat said. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
It's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years. So tell us where it all started.
I don't have the normal story. This wasn't my dream. Training horses wasn't my dream. Rodeoing wasn't my dream. My family had horses. My dad had trained race horses at one time, and then my brothers roped and stuff, and everybody else kind of quit. And I trained the ranch horses to run. I trained everything to run barrels just because I thought it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved the show calves and I loved the show heifers, and so I really kind of wanted to go that way. And then God always has a bigger plan than we do, and it just kind of it was something that I was decent at, and so I would buy horses through college at the little local horse sale if they had any running blood at all, and then train them to run barrels and sell them and pay my bills. And then I married Jo Duke, and he had a lot better eye for a horse than I did, and so I learned a lot about that from him. And we would still the same deal, buy horses and get them going. And it was probably almost 2000, the end of late 90s, before I even knew what a futurity was. And I had a guy that just asked me if I wanted to take a horse that I was riding for him to futurity, and I learned from there. And I don't know, it just became my life. And I mean, I feel super blessed that it did, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I didn't go through, I don't recommend doing it how I did it. But so I didn't go through the going under another trainer and stuff. But I did take every opportunity I could to go ride with, be it pleasure horse trainers or reiners or barrel racers or whatever. And I still do that. I still go ride with everybody I can.
Why do you choose to do that and get all of the different perspectives on how people ride?
Well, I think even if it's something that maybe at that moment isn't going to fix whatever problem you're having, I always try to put that in my toolbox, because I've had situations come up later that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember so-and-so was doing this with a horse. The reiners, I've learned a lot about, how a horse, everybody barrel racer wise always talks about inside hind leg, and those reiners aren't necessarily all about inside. That outside leg, hind leg's got to do some stuff also. And so I just think anytime you can go outside your box, you learn a lot more than just what's been drilled in you.
Jordan brings some of the best in the business. You can see In the Loop with Jordan Jo Hollabaugh and LaTricia Duke streaming on Cowboy Channel Plus. That's where you can find some of the best in the biz. But we're not done yet. Next on Western Sports Roundup, we're going to wrap it all up and even tell you about our top stories of the day. Stay with us.
It is time for our top stories of the day, presented by Vetericen, Clean Treat and Heal. 50 years in the rearview mirrors for Bob Tallman at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, and it was an honor to have him in the studio with us today to talk about all of his successes and the legacy he leaves behind.
We talked with world-renowned orthopedic arthroscopic surgeon Dr. Thomas Byrd. Surgery, recovery, and qualities that our successful athletes outside of the arena also have across multiple sports, multiple events as well. And we even talked about some of the best up-and-comers in the state of Texas. A lot of money and scholarships as well were handed out, and these kids walked away with it and are our up-and-coming champs in the arena.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on this week. Hard to believe we're already at the halfway point. I know San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo starting this week. I cannot believe the Texas Swing continues of one of the most iconic rodeos in Western sports. Hopefully, if you're close by, get you some tickets. But otherwise, you can watch it on the Cowboy Channel live with us February 12th through the 28th.
And with your Cowboy Channel Plus subscription, you don't want to miss it. That's how the best of the best get started. But that's going to do it for Western Sports Roundup today. For Corey, my name is Elise. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.